they're really leveraging the old Soviet stocks, which means that they will probably run out of equipment, capable combat equipment, within 18 months to 2 years.
Five former defense secretaries and Boris Johnson are urging the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, to ignore America's hesitancy and allow Ukraine to use its long-range missiles to strike inside Russia. Pressure is mounting on both the UK and the US to support Ukraine, and quickly, after reports that Russia has received arms from Iran. So why doesn't the UK go ahead without the US? Well, joining us now is Major General Chip Chapman, former senior British military advisor and former head of counterterrorism at the Ministry of Defence. Major General, thanks so much for giving us your time.
You're welcome, Alexis.
What do you make of this story so far? Do you think that the UK can ignore the wishes of the US?
No, and that's for a specific reason to do with targeting. So a Storm Shadow is a precision guided munition, and within the kill chain that you need from the user pressing a button to it hitting its target, somewhere in that, along that line, you either need American capability, authorization, or permission. And that's in three areas. Firstly, you want to hit high value targets. How do you get the high value target? You do it through surveillance and reconnaissance. Normally, that is going to be through satellite intelligence. As at May 23, there were 7,560 satellites, 5,184 of those are US. It's only the US which have that ubiquitous coverage, 24-hour coverage to give you that high value target information. So the first thing is that, the surveillance and reconnaissance. The second thing is, because it's a precision guided munition, you need navigation and guidance. The GPS constellations are provided by the Americans. It's those that provide the precise location data to precision guided munitions to allow you, for example, to adjust the flight paths in real time to accurately hit those targets, because of course they might move. And thirdly, you need the data links to go along with that. So somewhere along that, what is known as the kill chain, you need American permission. So it's okay, the politicians saying, do it without the American permissions, but you haven't got the capability to do that. Now, I'm not saying that the British don't have satellites. They do, Skynet 5, but they don't have the same coverage. And in terms of the low Earth orbit, for example, which is between 80 kilometers and 1700 kilometers, at the higher level of that, a 1700 kilometer range of low Earth orbit is a 2-hour cycle around the Earth. You'd need 12 satellites to give you a 24-hour coverage. Only the Americans can do that, not the British.
Some listening to this will wonder, I mean, these missiles cost $1 million each. They were developed by the British and the French. Have they developed a missile that is, well, to some extent, useless unless you have American cooperation, from what it sounds like?
Well, not necessarily. It depends where you want to use them in what theatre of operations.
Okay.
And normally we're in lockstep in terms of these things. It doesn't always happen, of course, that you're in lockstep. So, for example, although we've given Storm Shadow and the French, obviously, Scalp equivalent, and the ATACMS from the Americans, one of the missing capabilities is the German Taurus, which is very similar to Storm Shadow, but has a different type of warhead, and therefore would be the predominant system, for example, which would be useful against the Kerch Bridge. And also, of course, we have to remember that it was a lot of delay from the Germans again in allowing Leopard 1, Leopard 2 tanks because of the restrictions due to foreign military sales and third-party transference. So other countries were not allowed to transfer their Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 tanks for a number of months because of the reticence of Germany.
Major General, putting aside the need for US cooperation, what is your opinion on whether or not those missiles should be used to hit targets on Russian soil? Do you think that that would help or hinder the process to finding some sort of solution and bring the war to an end?
Well, it may well help. Now, it's really what can it do and what can it not do? It would push back the Russian staging areas, and it would push back supply depots, and therefore make it more difficult for Russia to fight the close battle in a decisive manner, which therefore means that at some stage you would come to a negotiating posture. What it won't do is it won't impact on the launching of glide bombs and the firing of cruise missiles by the Russians, because US intelligence suggests that 90% of the Russian aircraft launching at airfields are beyond for ATACMS and Storm Shadow range. So, from a military perspective, can we use them and could we use them? Yes, we can. Should we and must we? Are political questions, mainly to do with, I think, escalation management as a policy of politicians. That is not necessarily a strategy, it's a policy.
And in your view, does the way to peace lie through more military action? And I ask this because we know that looking at history, Russia has been able to just pour what seems like limitless amounts of lives in conflicts. And from what we understand as well, they are getting help from Iran, they are getting help from China, they are still able to shift some of their fossil fuels because other countries around the world are prepared to buy them. So the economic sanctions have not succeeded in actually putting the squeeze on the Russian economy as much in order to bring the war to an end. So are we just, by continuing with the military action, just perpetuating this conflict? Is this where this answer is going to be found, or do we need to look elsewhere?
Well, some of those characterizations are sort of wrong, really. So, the first one, which is wrong, is Putin has limitations on what he can do politically. So, for example, he would come under severe threat if he were to mobilize again, and there could be an inward implosion in Russia if he were to do that. Secondly, on the military side, he's utilizing more kit than is being built, and they're really leveraging the old Soviet stocks, which means that they will probably run out of equipment, capable combat equipment, within 18 months to 2 years. Thirdly, in terms of the economic side, they've reached the sort of zenith of where their economy is going. And from the end of 2024, it's going to be in a downward trajectory. So giving more weapons to Ukraine would get you to a position when one of those three things, or two or all three of those, may pertain, and therefore bring Russia to the negotiating table with better leverage for Ukraine.
Major General Chip Chapman, thank you so much for giving us your time and your expertise. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
You're welcome, Alexis.